The ultimatum, the morning sun, cast long shadows across the Pentagon as President Elena Torres received the most important briefing in human history. 3 days earlier, massive alien ships had appeared at the edge of the solar system. They called themselves the Cathari Empire, and their message was simple: submit or die. Admiral Marcus Kane stood before the Emergency Council, his weathered face grim. The satellite feeds showed ships that dwarfed Earth's largest cities. Each vessel bristled with weapons that could glass entire continents. The lead ship alone was larger than Manhattan. "Madame President," Kane began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation, "they've given us 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Their leader, Emperor Vashtok, demands we kneel before his empire or face what he calls complete molecular dissolution." Elena Torres had served as president for 6 years, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. She looked around the room at humanity's greatest minds and military leaders. Each face reflected the same mixture of fear and determination that churned in her stomach. "What do we know about their capabilities?" she asked. General Patricia Reeves activated the holographic display. "Their technology appears to be at least 3 centuries ahead of ours. Energy weapons that can punch through our strongest armor like paper. Shields that can deflect nuclear weapons, and their numbers... ... She paused. "Over 10,000 ships of various sizes." The room fell silent. Earth's entire space fleet consisted of barely 200 vessels, most of them mining ships hastily converted for combat. Dr. James Morrison, head of the Advanced Defense Research Project, cleared his throat. "Madame President, there is something you should know. Something we've been working on in absolute secrecy for the past 15 years. Elena raised an eyebrow. "Go on, Doctor." Morrison activated a classified file that required biometric confirmation from both the President and the Secretary of Defense. The display showed schematics for weapons and defensive systems unlike anything Elena had ever seen. "We call it Project Prometheus," Morrison explained. "After the Roswell incident in 1947, we didn't just cover it up. We reverse-engineered everything. For decades, we've been preparing for this exact scenario." Admiral Kane leaned forward, his eyes widening as he studied these weapon systems. "They're using alien technology." "Improved alien technology," Morrison corrected. "We took their designs and made them better, more efficient, more deadly, while the galaxy has grown comfortable with their ancient weapons. We've been innovating." Elena felt a spark of hope. "How much better?" Dr. Sarah Chen, the project's lead engineer, stepped forward. She was young for such a crucial position, but her genius was undeniable. "Our analysis of the Cathari transmissions shows they're using technology that's remained virtually unchanged for millennia. They've grown stagnant, overconfident. They expect us to fight like every other species they've conquered." "And how do other species fight?" Elena asked. Predictably, Chen replied, "They rely on superior numbers and firepower. They engage in direct combat. They follow established military doctrine. They fight to win battles." Admiral Kane understood immediately. "But we're not going to fight battles." Chen smiled grimly. "We're going to fight a war. 18 hours before the Cathari deadline. Emperor Vashtok himself appeared on every communication device on Earth. His species was humanoid, but taller, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. His eyes were completely black, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "Humans of the planet Earth," he began, his words translated by advanced alien technology. "I am Emperor Vashtok, of the Cathari Empire. For 3,000 years, my people have brought order to this galaxy. We have conquered 700 worlds and absorbed their populations into our great civilization. The transmission showed images of other worlds, beautiful planets reduced to industrial wastelands, alien species working in massive factories under Cathari supervision. The message was clear: submit or join them in slavery. Your species shows promise, the Emperor continued. Your resistance to our initial probes demonstrates courage. For this reason, I offer you a choice. Surrender now, and you will be granted the honor of serving the Empire. Your strongest will become warriors in our legions. Your most intelligent will advance our science. Your planet will contribute to the greater glory of the Cathari. The transmission paused as the Emperor's black eyes seemed to stare directly through the screen. Or, he said, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper, you may choose to resist. In which case, we will demonstrate why the Cathari Empire has never known defeat. Your cities will burn, your oceans will boil. Your very atoms will be scattered to the cosmic wind. Choose wisely, humans. You have 18 hours. The transmission ended, leaving Earth in stunned silence. President Torres addressed the world. From the Oval Office that evening, her speech was broadcast to every nation, translated into every language, carried to every corner of the globe. My fellow humans, she began, her voice calm but resolute. Today we face a choice that will define our species for all time. We can bow down to those who would make us slaves, or we can stand up and show the galaxy what humanity truly means. She paused, letting her words sink in. The Cathari Empire believes we are weak because we sought peace. They think we are helpless because we welcome their arrival with curiosity rather than hostility. They have mistaken our desire for cooperation as inability to fight. Alina looked directly into the camera, her eyes reflecting the steel in her voice. They are about to learn that humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to adapt, to overcome, and to survive against impossible odds. We have faced extinction before, ice ages, plagues, world wars, natural disasters. Every time we have emerged stronger. She stood up from her desk. Emperor Vashtok demands our surrender. I have a different message for the Cathari Empire. You came to our system expecting to find easy prey. Instead, you have awakened something that has been sleeping among the stars. You wanted to see human resolve. You're about to witness it firsthand. The Emperor's response came 12 hours later. His massive flagship, the Devastator of Worlds, moved into Earth's orbital space. Hundreds of smaller vessels formed attack formations around it. Energy readings spiked as the alien fleet prepared to demonstrate their power. Your leaders have chosen death over wisdom, Vashtok announced. Very well, we will honor their choice. Behold the price of defying the Cathari Empire. The Emperor raised one of his forearms, and every weapon on every ship in his fleet began charging. The energy buildup was visible from Earth's surface as thousands of points of light gathered deadly power. Fire, he commanded. The alien fleet unleashed enough destructive force to shatter continents. Beams of coherent energy lanced toward Earth's major cities. Plasma missiles streaked through space toward military installations. The Cathari had chosen to make an example of humanity that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. But something impossible happened. The energy beams struck what appeared to be empty space and simply vanished. The plasma missiles exploded, harmlessly against invisible barriers. Every single attack was absorbed by defensive systems that shouldn't have existed. Admiral Kane watched from the hidden command center beneath Cheyenne Mountain. The facility had been expanded over decades, carved deep into the earth itself. Holographic displays showed the alien fleet's confusion as their weapons proved completely ineffective. Prometheus' shield is holding steady, reported Dr. Chen. All sectors showing 98% deflection efficiency. Kane allowed himself a small smile. The look on their faces right now must be priceless. On the Devastator of Worlds, Emperor Vashtok stood frozen in disbelief. His tactical officers frantically ran diagnostics on their weapons systems. Everything was functioning perfectly, but somehow the humans had absorbed attacks that should have reduced their planet to molten slag. How is this possible? The Emperor demanded. His chief science advisor, a nervous creature named Zektha, studied the sensor readings. Sir, the humans appear to have developed shield technology that operates on principles we don't understand. Our weapons aren't malfunctioning, they're being completely negated. Vashtok's 4 hands clenched into fists. In 3,000 years of conquest, nothing like this had ever happened. The Cathari were the most advanced species in the galaxy. Their technology was absolute. Double the power, he ordered. Triple it if necessary. Nothing can withstand the full might of the Imperial fleet. The second barrage was 3 times more powerful than the first. The energy output was enough to crack a moon. Every ship in the fleet fired simultaneously, creating a storm of destruction that turned the space around Earth into a furnace of deadly radiation. Once again, the attacks simply vanished into nothingness. President Torres opened a communication channel to the Cathari fleet. When her image appeared on the Emperor's command screen, she was calm, almost serene. "Emperor Vashtok," she said formally, "thank you for that demonstration. Now allow me to return the favor." She nodded to someone off-screen, across Earth's surface. Camouflaged installations that had been hidden for decades suddenly revealed themselves. Mountain ranges opened like flowers, exposing weapons platforms that dwarfed anything in the Cathari fleet. Ocean floors rose as submarine installations surfaced. Even the moon itself split apart, revealing a massive weapons array that had been constructed in absolute secrecy. But the real shock came from space itself. What the Cathari had thought was empty void suddenly shimmered and revealed itself to be a vast network of cloaked stations. Humanity hadn't just fortified Earth, they had turned the entire inner solar system into a fortress. Dr. Chun's voice echoed across all communication frequencies. "Project Prometheus, Phase 2, all units, you are cleared to engage." The human fleet that emerged from stealth was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The ships were sleek, elegant, and bristling with weapons that defied conventional physics. They moved with impossible grace, their hulls shimmering with energy fields that bent light itself. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, the U.S. Defiance. Around him, officers worked with quiet efficiency at stations displaying technology that would have seemed magical just decades earlier. "Target their command ship," Kane ordered. "Let's introduce the Emperor to human hospitality." The Reckoning, the first human weapon to fire, was unlike anything the Cathari had encountered in their 3 millennia of conquest. Captain Sarah Chen, commanding the destroyer U.S. Prometheus, activated what her crew called the Reality Ripper. The weapon didn't fire a projectile or energy beam. Instead, it created a localized distortion in space-time itself. The effect on the Cathari escort vessel was immediate and terrifying. The ship simply folded in on itself, its matter compressed into a point smaller than an atom before vanishing entirely, not destroyed, erased from existence. Emperor Vashtok watched in horror as one of his most powerful cruisers ceased to exist. His tactical officers stood frozen, unable to comprehend what they had witnessed. "Sir," stammered Siktha, "that's impossible. No weapon can manipulate space-time to that degree. The energy requirements alone would require the output of a star," interrupted Dr. Chun's voice as she broke into the Cathari communication system. "Which is exactly what we're using. Hello, Emperor. I'm Captain Sarah, Chen of the Earth Defense Force. I wanted to personally thank you for giving us a target to test our new toys on." The transmission showed a young human woman, barely 30 years old, standing casually on a bridge that hummed with power. Behind her, displays showed weapon systems that operated on principles the Cathari couldn't even identify. "You see, Your Majesty," Chen continued, "while your empire spent 3,000 years conquering primitive worlds, we spent 70 years reverse engineering your technology and improving it. We didn't just copy your weapons, we redesigned them from the ground up." Another human ship fired. This weapon created what appeared to be a black hole that consumed 3 Cathari vessels before dissipating harmlessly. The precision was surgical, the power unimaginable. "The problem with being an empire," Admiral Kane's voice joined the transmission, "is that you grow comfortable, you stop innovating. You start believing your own propaganda about being superior." Kane appeared on screen, his weathered face showing the calm confidence of a man who held all the cards. "We never had that luxury. Humans have always known we were small, weak, and vulnerable, so we learned to be smart instead." The Cathari fleet tried to retreat, but found their path blocked by more cloaked human vessels. The trap was perfect, planned down to the smallest detail. What had appeared to be a simple conquest had become a slaughter. Emperor Vashtak activated his personal communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies with the desperation of a being who had never known defeat. "This is Emperor Vashtok of the Cathari Empire," he declared. "I demand to speak with your supreme commander. By the ancient laws of warfare, I challenge your strongest warrior to single combat. Winner claims victory for their species." The human response was immediate, but it came from an unexpected source. President Torres appeared on the screen, still in the Oval Office, completely calm despite the cosmic battle raging above her planet. "Emperor," she said politely, "I appreciate the traditional approach, but we're not particularly interested in your ancient laws. You came to our system with the intent to kill or enslave every human being alive. You've forfeited any right to honorable combat." Vashtok's black eyes widened. "You cannot simply ignore the sacred traditions of warfare. Even the most barbaric species respects the right of what?" Torres interrupted. "The right to challenge us to a fight after you threatened to burn our cities and boil our oceans. The right to claim honor after you promised to scatter our atoms to the cosmic wind." She leaned forward, her voice taking on an edge that made the Emperor step back. "You wanted to see what humans do when challenged. This is what we do. We don't fight fair. We don't follow your rules. We fight to win, and we use every advantage we can create." The battle continued around them as Torres spoke. Human ships moved through the Cathari fleet like shadows, striking without warning and disappearing before return fire could target them. It wasn't a battle, it was a demonstration of technological superiority so complete that it defied belief, Captain. Chun's voice cut through the Emperor's attempts to rally his remaining ships. "Your Imperial Majesty, You should know that we've been monitoring your communications for the past 70 years. We know about every world you've conquered, every species you've enslaved, every act of cruelty committed in the name of your empire. The revelation stunned the Emperor. Impossible. Our communication networks use quantum encryption that we cracked in 1987. Chen replied cheerfully. We've been listening to everything. We know about the slave worlds. We know about the extermination camps. We know about the experiments on sentient beings. Admiral Kane's voice joined hers. We know that you've killed over 14 billion sentient creatures in your quest for galactic dominance. We know that you consider other species to be nothing, more than resources to be harvested. The human fleet had stopped firing, leaving the surviving Kethari vessels trapped but alive. The silence was more terrifying than the violence had been. President Torres reappeared on the communication screen. So here's what's going to happen, Emperor. Your surviving ships will return to Kethari space with a message. The age of your empire is over. Every world you've conquered will be liberated. Every species you've enslaved will be freed. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. But here's the interesting part. We're not going to rule them ourselves. We're not interested in replacing your empire with a human empire. We're going to help them rebuild their civilizations and govern themselves. The Emperor's confusion was visible. That makes no sense. Why conquer if not to rule? What do you gain from victory if not dominance? Torres smiled, and for the first time it was warm rather than cold. That's the difference between humans and the Kethari Emperor. We don't conquer to dominate. We fight to protect. We don't seek to rule others. We seek to help them rule themselves. Dr. Chen's voice cut in again. We're transmitting the locations of your slave worlds to every liberated species in our files. They'll be receiving care packages within the month. Food, medicine, technology to help them rebuild. And if you or any other empire tries to re-enslave them, she gestured to the devastation around the Emperor's ship. Well, you've seen what happens to those who threaten innocent people. Admiral Kane opened a new transmission channel. Emperor Vashtok, you demanded single combat. Very well, I challenge you to face me, warrior to warrior, with whatever weapons. You choose. If you win, your surviving ships can leave in peace. If you lose, you surrender yourself for trial on charges of crimes against sentient life. The Emperor's pride overcame his fear. He had been trained from birth in the warrior traditions of his species. Despite everything he had witnessed, he couldn't believe that a single human could defeat him in personal combat. I accept, he declared. Prepare a neutral zone between our fleets. I will show you why the Kethari have ruled this galaxy for millennia. The combat zone was established in the space between the two fleets. Both combatants wore environmental suits and carried weapons of their choosing. The Emperor brought a plasma sword that could cut through any known material and a personal shield generator that could deflect energy weapons. Admiral Kane arrived wearing what appeared to be a simple combat suit and carrying weapons that looked primitive by blade that seemed to be made of ordinary steel and what looked like an ancient human projectile weapon. The Emperor laughed. You bring toys to fight the mightiest warrior in the galaxy. Human arrogance knows no bounds. Kane checked his equipment calmly. Emperor, there's something you should understand about humans. We've been fighting and killing each other for our entire existence. War isn't just what we do, it's what we are. The combat began with the Emperor's charge. His plasma sword blazed with energy as he closed the distance, moving with the deadly grace of a born predator. His 4 arms gave him advantages no human could match, allowing him to attack and defend simultaneously while maintaining perfect balance. Kane dodged the first strike by millimeters, the plasma blade leaving a glowing trail where his head had been. The Emperor pressed his attack, his sword work a blur of motion that should have overwhelmed any opponent. But Kane had trained for this moment his entire career. He moved like water, flowing around the Emperor's attacks while watching for openings. His simple steel blade deflected plasma strikes that should have shattered it, and his movements showed an understanding of combat that went beyond mere technique. "You fight well for a primitive," the Emperor admitted, pressing his advantage. "But you cannot defeat 3 millennia of warrior breeding." Kane smiled grimly. "Emperor, your species conquered primitive worlds with superior technology. You never learned to fight opponents who could match your capabilities." The turning point came when Kane shifted from defense to offense. His blade work was unlike anything the Emperor had encountered, not the formal dueling style of the Cathari, but something primal and deadly. Every move was efficient, purposeful, designed to kill rather than display skill. The Emperor's plasma sword was powerful, but it required precise control. Kane's steel blade was simple, but it was wielded by someone who understood that in real combat, victory belonged to whoever was more willing to do what was necessary to survive. Kane's projectile weapon fired once. The Emperor's personal shield absorbed the bullet, but the impact threw off his timing just enough for Kane to slip inside his guard. The steel blade found the gap in the Emperor's armor with surgical precision. Emperor Vashtok looked down at the simple human blade protruding from his chest, his black eyes wide with disbelief. "How?" he whispered. Kane met his gaze without hatred or triumph, only the cold professionalism of a soldier who had done his duty. "Because humans don't fight to prove how strong we are, Emperor. We fight to protect what we love." The Emperor fell, his reign ended by a species he had considered beneath notice. The aftermath of the battle changed the galaxy forever. The surviving Cathari ships returned home to find their empire collapsing as liberated worlds rose in rebellion. But instead of chaos, they found order. Human ships arrived, not as conquerors, but as helpers, providing aid and technology to species that had suffered under imperial rule for millennia. President Torres addressed the galaxy from Earth. Her words broadcast to every world that had ever known Cathari oppression. "People of the galaxy," she began, "today marks the end of an age of tyranny and the beginning of an age of cooperation. Humanity offers its friendship to all species willing to live in peace and respect the rights of others." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "We have shown that we possess the power to conquer, but we choose instead to protect. We have demonstrated that we can destroy, but we prefer to build. This is our gift to the galaxy, not domination, but the chance for every species to determine its own destiny." Dr. Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, watching as human ships departed for the far corners of the galaxy. Each vessel carried supplies, medical aid, and the technology needed for formerly enslaved worlds to defend themselves. "Captain," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving thank you messages from over 300 star systems." Chen nodded, but her expression remained serious. "Any word from the Cathari homeworld?" "Yes, ma'am. Their new government has formally surrendered and is requesting assistance in establishing a democratic system. They want to make reparations to the species they conquered." For the first time since the crisis began, Sarah Chen allowed herself to smile. "Set course for Cathari Prime. It's time to show them what real strength looks like." The galaxy had demanded conflict from humanity. They had received something far more powerful, a demonstration that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to choose mercy even when destruction was possible. The age of the Cathari Empire was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun. And it had all started because one species had learned the most important lesson in the universe, that the greatest victory was not conquering your enemies, but turning them into friends. Asterisk.